girl, if you black 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 girl, do your thing, do your thing, do your thing, do your thing. Black girl, if you black girl, if you black girl, if you JP, my neck, my back, so my back.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to your place for the good, the bad, and the petty of Florida politics, brought to you by the Screw It Will Do It crew, the Florida Black girls. It's been a long time. Shouldn't have left you without a dope beat to step two, wiki. But Maya and Lindsay, how have you been for the past year?
I can't believe it's been a year, and I was hoping
a whole year.
I was hoping you went with that lyric when you said it. It's been a long time, and so I appreciate that.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah, we were on hiatus. I didn't. I won't speak for Jasmine and Maya. I didn't expect us to be on hiatus for a whole year. But life was lifing for the three of us, and now we're back. The streets asked where we were, so we ran out of excuses to tell them, so we came back.
Yeah, that's right. And in the words of an infamous rapper whose name I can't recall at the time, I heard y'all was looking for us, so here we go. Okay.
Here I
go. Here we go.
And so back to. I was just gonna say, before you do your church announcement, I have one. Y'all gonna be asking questions about where we've been, where we was at, why, the 5 W's and an H. Let me tell you something. We might do a mini pod about this, but our DMs are closed to specific questions. Okay, let me be very clear. Maybe if you get on the Patreon, we'll answer some questions. But
hey now, exclusive content.
Listen, I needed to just make that abundantly clear as the pallbearer for or the armor bearer. That's what they say in church. This is the armor bearer.
It's almost Holy Week. It's almost Holy Week. I will pass the plate on our behalf. I will do that.
Church announcements. Praise
him. Listen. Yes, praise him in advance. Well, welcome back to the church announcements in our regularly scheduled program. This week's church announcements, we want to spend a lot of time talking about foreign affairs, right? As Lindsay so cleverly put it, none of us are experts here on foreign affairs. We know what we see on the internet, on TikTok. We read a little, we research a lot. And I think what's very, very important is that the foreign affairs impact the United States politics. It impacts Florida politics. It impacts voters because they have access to some of the same information that we do, and or a variety of different information. So top of mind for us today is what's happening in Haiti, and with our Haitian siblings across the diaspora, across this globe. And calling it an unrest feels really passive. And I don't like that word. Like unrest feels like, just couldn't sleep last night, something I ate. When it feels like it's a coordinated attack on Haitian folks, it feels like anti-Blackness. It feels like colonization. It feels like, centuries of retribution for them being the first free country in the Western Hemisphere. Like it feels like a lot of people owe them stuff and are only giving them violence. So that's why unrest just doesn't feel like the right word. And its connection to Florida, of course, Creole is the third most spoken language in Florida. It's a language that's constantly ignored in our politics, our campaigns. It's constantly ignored by our candidates. But we also have a governor that is saying, I'm going to send Haitian folks to Martha's Vineyard, and is deploying the National Guard and police and all that to the Florida Keys to catch them in the water, right? And having a conversation yesterday about how we welcomed Jewish folks, Israeli people, Ukrainian people into this state with open arms. But when it comes to Haitian folks in the middle of turmoil, we are literally trying to catch them and send them back or send them somewhere else as if it's not our problem. So what do you all think?
Oof. This is a heavy one for me. Just cards on the table. My brother-in-law is Haitian American. which make my nieces Haitian American too. And I have always had very strong feelings about the way Haitian Americans are viewed in this country, how they are viewed in this state, and the aid that they just do not receive that we so freely give other immigrants. So this one is super tough for me to kind of wrap my arms around. Um, Again, cards on the table. I had told Maya and Jasmine just before we started recording, I completely missed DeSantis's comments because we were recording the day after he made them. So I missed them yesterday because we were doing election stuff for the March elections. So I saw them today and I haven't fully processed it yet because, again, these are hurting people who are looking for relief and we just disregard them. Like we're just gonna like ship them off like Super Bowl t-shirts for the losing team. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing that is your response to people who are hurting when other people who look very different who are hurting and come from countries who are in the middle of an unrest get to be welcome. Give me your poor, your tired, your huddled masses. Unless you're dark skinned, then we have no space for you. Then we have to like figure out what to do with you. And it's just, again, I haven't fully processed it to say anything eloquent enough. It's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
Plus ones to both of y'all's sermons. I think, Lindsay, you took the words right out of my mouth when I find it hypocritical that this country that was founded on a lot of things, on the transatlantic slave trade, on the immigration of, or the asylum seekers of folks in Europe who came to this country and built this country, obviously to different degrees, to different benefits. But that is what this concept of a melting pot is built on, this, the fleeing of something else for the most part, especially for white Americans. That is the crux of how so many of them got to this country. That's the first part. And the second part is when we think about what's happening and the governor's response to that, I am not surprised because he told us who he was when he was running for governor to begin with. He was very critical of his Democratic opponent, Andrew Gillum, when we had conversations about sanctuary cities, right? And in Tallahassee, when Mayor Gillum was presiding over that city and wanted that to be a sanctuary city. Then Congressman DeSantis was very critical of that, and even the concept of asylum seekers coming to the state of Florida. It was very, I can't remember when the war between Ukraine and Russia started and any comments that the governor made then. But, you know, my mom used to say, if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. And so I wonder if that point he was like, well, I might not be the most popular guy if I make some remarks about this, that I might not actually be in support of it. So he decided to keep his mouth shut. But at least on this issue, he's been consistent. Like all immigrants, it seems to me, like no matter who you are, where you come from. But I also think that it is dehumanizing to see a family on a boat in the middle of the ocean and send them back to understanding what they are fleeing from. These folks didn't get on a plane and land at MIA or at Fort Lauderdale Airport or Tampa International Airport. Can you imagine a boat trying to get across an ocean? Like, that is the imagery of that. And even the imagery, if you all remember, when folks were trying to climb this wall and running from dogs and horses, right? Like these things you think we would see in movies. This is happening to folks in real life. And so I am heartbroken. I think Lindsay is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this. Of course, political unrest we've seen in countries throughout the globe, and sometimes that yields to more revolution, and sometimes it leads to greater disparity. And I don't have enough background or context as to why this situation has even erupted so much so that the Haitian president has stepped down. And that does not absolve us from being the Captain Save-A-Hose as we are in America to turn away these folks, because that's who we are, right? And so that is something that I think is outrageous. And and I tweeted maybe last week or earlier this week, like, it is interesting how we had open arms, to the point that Jasmine made, for folks from Jewish descent and from Ukraine coming to this country, yet in the midst of violence on boats, we turn folks away. And so I think that definitely speaks volumes. There's a man in the state legislature, Rep. Bernie Jacques from the Pinellas County, who has been making a lot of comments. And so I am interested to see, out of all of the water he's carried, who was Haitian born, I believe, and immigrated. He and his family immigrated when he was young, to see how he responds, because he's carried a lot of water on immigration policy in the state legislature for the Republicans. So now that they're on your front porch and impacting your folks, what are you going to do, Rep. Jacques? The people want to know, and the people being me. So I listen, I just got on my soapbox, and so I apologize for that. But this has been, Ron DeSantis is I don't know if he's gonna see the gates, y'all. I just don't. I don't know.
Well, to quote you, it's some stuff. It's some stuff.
It's some stuff. And I think that I'm scrolling right now on the social medias, because I'm looking at, for example, a brief scan of Daniela Levine Cava, the mayor of Miami-Dade County's Instagram. Says nothing about what's happening in Haiti, right? Like, for some reason, it's talking about something going on in Cuba, which I also don't understand, but nothing about what's happening in Haiti. So it's like, what is it about Haitian? Actually, this is a rhetorical question, because it's Blackness. Like, that's what it is about Haitian folks that makes people dehumanize them, continue to turn a blind eye, and not make them the topic of political discussion, political discourse, resources, like that's the only thing. Because to Maya's point about the imagery of families on boats, there's the quote that I'm going to ruin, but it's something that's like, people don't leave their home unless somewhere else is safer, right? So like, these people are leaving everything that they've known, family members, culture, heritage, ancestry, people that they love, like businesses, education, so much stuff, in search of something, anything that is marginally safer, only to be met by armed guards, horses, dogs, all of that. And I truly believe that if Florida didn't have beaches, Ron DeSantis would try to figure out a way to put walls around it. But that would drive Floridians mad, right? So it's like that's his thing, is that he's like, we must protect our borders, and all of Florida is the border. So it's just really, really terrible and disgusting. And I think that we are at another electoral compression point, where Haitian folks are watching, young people are watching how this is all going to unfold, and who gets prioritized, and how people are treating Haitian folks and Haitian families in their campaigns. And they're going to make a decision about if and how they show up in August and November. And we need to be real. We need to be real about that. So I don't know. I'm also going to search to see if chair of FDP said anything, but like, I just don't understand how we can like have such blinders on and act like, no, none of this matters. So that's that. Any other comments?
I think this is just a reminder, yes, to all of that. And this is a reminder that we need to bring back civic education, because I think, to the point, Jasmine, that you're making, everybody's going to be looking to the White House and Joseph Robinette and Kamala Harris to be doing something about this. And to the point, they aren't the ones, and cannot, in theory or legally, tell Ron DeSantis not to fly migrants out to Martha's Vineyard. And so we need to make sure that we're telling folks, yes, the administration should be acting on this, but also remember that Ron DeSantis is the one who is utilizing your taxpayer dollars to put folks on planes and send them to Martha's Vineyard. Also be reminded, these state legislators who are going to be on your ballot are also the ones who put in the budget appropriations to help fund this foolishness, right? So this is why this is important to say, like, state and local folks don't get to skate by or skirt accountability on this. This is not just Joseph's problem. This is up and down the ballot. And the fact that, again, sanctuary cities we had in Florida, but the legislature and all its infinite wisdom decided that they wanted to say F you to home rule and tell cities that they don't know what's best for them, especially those in South Florida who said, come, like you said, my whatever the document in the Constitution or whatever says, like, these are places that folks can come and seek asylum. But again, the legislature, because of all of its racism, its bigotry, not only said screw you to home rule, but also to the fact that this can be a safe haven for folks who are seeking asylum and safety.
And I will, yes, Maya, yes. And I will also share something that I just found on Al Gore's Internet for the People. In the summer of 1994, the United States was faced with a flood of immigrants from both Haiti and Cuba. Fleeing the corrupt and violent dictatorship of Lieutenant General Raul Cedillas, thousands of Haitians headed for the United States on crude rafts. Those who made it or were intercepted by the U.S. Coast Guard were interned in camps. By summer 1994, approximately 13,000 Haitians were interned at the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo. That was 30 years ago, y'all. We are still doing the exact same thing 30 years ago in the middle of a heated presidential election with the incumbent on the ballot. And it's like, how have we not learned anything in 3 decades?
And we need to, again,
awful.
Yeah. And again, to the point about civic education, we, because of white supremacy, prioritize domestic policy and American politics over and try to ignore, especially in American government, if they even teach that foreign affairs are even happening. And so so many young people, and I think students, especially our age and younger, are probably going to look back and be like, wow, here are history books about these things that have been happening even while we were living, and not be able to say with certainty, like, I remember when this happened, or I remember being taught about this, without their own independent research, either on TikTok or Al Gore's Internet, or actually picking up some sort of Dewey Decimal Library book. And so what does it look like to be able to say and have socially aware and politically aware folks? And that's the point, and that's why they're banning books, to be able to say, here's what's happening in real time, this concept of a double V campaign, like victory at home and victory abroad.
Yeah.
I got to stop because
well, you can't have American exceptionalism, Maya, if we actually talk about the ways in which America lets other countries down. How can we preach American exceptionalism if we have to look at ourselves in the mirror and acknowledge our own faults?
One, I mean, to that point is that I spent a couple seconds scrolling on the Florida Dems Twitter timeline, and a couple other people. Frederica Wilson is tweeting about Cuba. The Florida Dems are tweeting about Cuba, and nobody's talking about Haiti. So it's just like, we've said it before over and over again, like, how do we walk and chew gum? How do we denounce these things? And I think, Lindsay, your point is correct. It's like, it would require us to look in the mirror, right? Like, how can you denounce what's happening in Haiti without also talking about the fact that France made Haiti pay them back for their independence, right? Like, and that crippled their economy. How do you talk about Haiti without talking about the U.S. intervention, right? Like, how do you talk about Haiti without talking about Hillary Clinton's election for president, and how many folks in South Florida were like, we don't like the Clintons because of what they did in Haiti, right? Like, how do you talk about all of these things all together without getting to the truth of the matter? But it requires getting to the truth of the matter to actually have a solution that affirms people's humanity and pays reparations, frankly, like citizenship in this country is the least that we can do for Haitian folks if that is what they want, right? Like if that is what they want. So again, up and down the ballot, people will point fingers at one another, very much like the little Spider-Man meme, and be like, we lost this election because of the president, because of the governor, because of the whatever. Everybody's looking at, and it's like, no, it's all the same thing. Y'all are ignoring the everyday realities of real people, and from your level of power, doing something about it. Maybe you're not the president, but like Maya said, maybe you're Representative Jacques, right? And you're over here being anti-immigrant, and now it's your people, right? Maybe you're not the president, but you are a local commissioner that can make sure there's community IDs or something. Like from your level of power, how are you doing something to support people's autonomy and freedom, right? Like how are you doing something to make sure folks can live really affirmed existences in this country? So I think that's that. And I mean, I'm not hesitant to also bring up Israel Palestine, because free Palestine for me all day. But I think that that's also the same thing. Like, how do we talk about what is happening in occupied Palestine without talking about colonialism, without talking about a history that predates some of us and also has happened in our lifetime? Like, how do we talk about all of these different things that now we have crisis and violence and can't even call it war when one side's armed and the other side is not so much? Like, how do we talk about all of these different things without talking about a holistic view of every moment and every decision from white supremacists, from patriarchal people that has gotten us to that point?
Yeah. And I think that this concept of us having this conversation is particularly when we sit at the intersections of Black womanhood, reminds me a lot of trailblazers like Angela Davis, who was labeled a communist, right? And had to defend didn't have to, but chose to defend herself in her trial. But now folks look back on that time when she raised hell about foreign affairs and domestic affairs as a hero, which she is, right? And spoke truth to power. And so I think about, like, is this conversation that we're having right now going to be memorialized and folks be like, wow, that was such pivotal and novel ideas and analysis, when quite candidly, it's not any different, right? Like,
right.
The issues of domestic quote unquote terrorism that we are facing in this country, and also how we are, again, being Captain Save-A-Ho in other people's mess. Just pick a different country, pick a different issue in terms of domestic policy, and it's going to be copy paste, right? And so again, the solutions to these things are not different. I don't know if we are arguing anything differently than some of these women of old, even predating the Black Panther Party in the civil rights movement, right? And all of these folks who, again, were seen as rebel rousers. But the concept, to the point that you made, Jasmine and Lindsay, is like, what does it look like for folks who look like us to be the center point of this, and not countries like China and Ukraine and Israel, where all of these things were different? But I think that folks aren't talking about it because it is a country of color.
Yeah.
And it would also require, quite candidly, us as Democrats to be able to say the thing and tell both folks who are of Haitian descent and can vote in this country, and also folks who are migrating and seeking asylum here, to say, there has been a history of your affiliation with and affinity for Republican politics and policies, and let's tell you how they are actually harming you more. And I don't know why we don't say those things out loud, and also aren't able to, or identify stakeholders and voices who can go into those communities and say, I am of Haitian descent. Let me tell you how Bernie Jacques, who is one of us, who is actually harming us in the legislature. We need to say the thing. We talk about it all the time in Latin and Hispanic communities, how we need voices to be able to stand up and speak back to what's happening in South Florida and Miami. We need the same thing, right? We're afraid that more Haitian voters are going to be voting for Republicans, which and that goes back to the concept that Black people are not a monolith, right? And so, like, what do we do to have a take this moment in time and actually pinpoint and drill down on the thing to say these two things are happening simultaneously and both of these things are true, and here's how not only this country needs to show up for you, the state needs to show up for you, but if you have the opportunity to vote, you need to show up for yourself.
Right.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head brilliantly, because I think that's just true of a lot of issues inside our party. And I don't know if it's polite society has gotten the better of us, or we just don't really understand how to message these things. Because you're right. Like, I think it was Debbie Merkisel Powell. She's like, you're always talking about us being communist socialists. Like, look at the Republican Party. Like, they are the ones who are imposing those kind of ideals on you, not us. But yet the Republicans have somehow been able to kind of flip that narrative to make us look like the people who are imposing will on folks. And it's odd. It's odd that it took. Like, the walking and chewing gum, there are a lot of things that Jewish people say about the state of Israel that are true. There are a lot of things that Palestinian people say about Gaza that are true. And those two things can exist at the same time. And yet it's become, nope, you got to pick a side. Well, okay. Do we, or do we need to get to an actual resolution? And can we do it in the middle of a holy war that has started before any of us were alive, which is, again, a true thing? Like, this is something that has existed between those two groups of people for a very long time. And there's a lot that we have to unravel there. And we have to have real conversations about things that exist in tandem before we can get to a solution. And I just don't know that Democrats can say the thing plainly. It's weird. It's so weird. People just want us to talk like normal people, and we get hemmed up and can't. I don't get it.
And a lot of the problems, this country is dealing with is because, like, in its path to becoming a superpower and a world power, we tried to emulate and step on the toes of the British when a lot of this stuff is not ours, right? Like, the colonialism that we are talking about, especially the issue that's happening in the Gaza Strip. The British were the ones who, were messing with stuff. And now it's our responsibility to go in and try to be the resolve between this 100 years conflict between Palestinians and the Israeli people, right? And so, and now we can't find Kate Middleton. So, like, I don't understand how there is like no accountability, and like they're just chilling, and America is left to again be Captain Save-A-Ho because we want it to be this like huge political superpower.
Well, and I think, it's very fascinating language that we're using, because it's the British are some of the original colonizers, right? So, like, that is in the blood of the white people here. Is that colonizer? Like, they can't leave well enough alone. And I truly believe that the United States of America is the Wizard of Oz. They like tries to have this big booming voice, tries to act like it's in control, tries to whatever. And it's like, baby, your credit score is 0. Why are you trying to tell everybody else what you could do? Like, the debt ratio is not it. Like, no bank would ever let any one of us together borrow as much as the US has against, like, and remember what they say on Twitter, like, who is the US in debt to? Decepticons? Like, truly, like, trillions of dollars that we owe, and we think that we can be big and bad against everybody else when our education's in the toilet, our healthcare is in the toilet, maternal mortality is in the toilet. We cannot house people through a fair and just immigration process. Our housing is in the toilet. Like all of these things where we are on the bottom, but we like to, on Love is Blind, Jess said, just because you're loud doesn't make you noticeable. And the US is trying to be the loudest in the room, the biggest in the room, to distract from the fact that we are trash, right? And back to this conversation with Lindsay said about US exceptionalism, the US is also keeping so many people trapped within these borders, like the small percentage of United States citizens that have a passport and actually travel. Because once you go to another country and see that you can get healthcare and get asthma medication for $4 with no prescription, you would never want to come back. And you would be demanding more from your government here. So I think that that's that. And I also think part of American exceptionalism is America has forced us, the United States of America, I'm not going to bring South America into this, but the United States of America has forced us to choose in battles that the United States has chosen to wage. And they are making the duality that, like, are you with us or are you against us? Are you a patriot or not? Like, who do you want to be in this? Are you with the illegals or are you with the citizens? Do you want them to take your jobs or not? If you don't want them to take your jobs, then vote for this Democrat. And it's like, that is also not the thing. And that is also not the language, because there is more to an assessment of who we should be supporting and how than just yes or no, America or not. Like when we talk about not only Palestine and what's going on, like, yes, hundreds of years of war and all of this, like holy war, conflict, but also let's be real about the facts of colonization, number one, and number two, what is going on right fucking now. And we should be able to say right now, chill. Like we got to chill. Like what you're doing in front of the world for the world to see is not cool. And we need to y'all need to stop before we can ever even come to a conversation about how we can support Israel or whatever, because this is not cool. It's embarrassing and this is not cool. And if we about to lose elections over it. And that's a decision that Biden's going to have to make. Because again, Democrats are under the impression that people will only choose Democrat or Republican. But the numbers that we see about Miami-Dade County says that more and more people are registering NPA. So what do we do with that? How do you message to NPA people when you can't make Republicans the big boogeyman? When people are making an active decision to say, both of y'all suck. So yeah, I hear you about the Republicans. I'm not with them either, but I also don't like the shit that you're doing and how you're supporting this mess and how Democrats have been in power in however long in Broward County, Fort Lauderdale, all these different places. And we still have big, big fucking problems. Or when the Democrats did control things in this country, what did we get from it? Right. And I think that we don't know how to message those everyday and kitchen table topics to talk about the actual impact on people's pockets and their families. And we also do not have the audacity of Trump to do something about it, right? Like Maya saying, and rightfully so, that the president can't do something about the border. Trump fucking did. Trump was like, we'll figure this shit out later. Like, I'm build a wall. Like, who gonna stop me? And we will figure this out later, right? Like, and I think that people so much want the audacity, because then you have a message that says, I, President Joseph Robinette, I tried to eliminate student debt. I tried to sign the paper, and let me tell you who stopped it from happening. And that's your message right there to get people to vote down ballot. We don't even have the audacity.
We don't have the audacity. And then the finger pointing, right? Like Republicans are good at pointing fingers, right? Like it's everybody else's fault. And these things are true. I tried to do it, but then these people messes it up. Like we need to start, like you said, the Spider-Man meme and start pointing fingers back. And yes, it confuses people. And we want to take the moral and intellectual high ground all the time to be able to explain these things. But they lie. I'm not saying we need to lie, but we need to be able to succinct what we are saying, right? To be able to say in a
we can tell people that they lie. We can also just do that. Like,
yeah.
So The Republicans are lying to you, and here are the receipts.
Yeah.
Like,
I
they're
remember once
lying.
I was
Yeah.
on a news show here in Tampa, and I said that I called DeSantis a liar, and the woman who else it was a panel of us. It was a Democrat and a Republican, and the Republican person was like the chair of the local Republican Party. Anywho, she lost it when I called DeSantis a liar. I said, "Did he tell the truth?" No. Okay, then, so that makes him a what? A liar. So let's be clear about this. And like it devolved into something very, very icky after the show aired. And she basically tried to sun me, but I was just like, again, there is truth and there is it being false. So where was he when we talked about these things? And so I feel like this is an amazing segue when we're talking about finger pointing. Cowboy Carter once said, America has a problem.
America has a problem.
Florida has a problem.
Yeah.
And we just got off the tailwinds of the 2024 legislative session. So for folks, there's 60 days in Florida. We technically have a part-time legislature where they have 60 days to go up and constitutionally have one job.
Pass the budget.
I love when you always bring that home.
One job.
One job.
You literally have one job.
And then every 10 years, you have a second job. It's to pass fair maps. But it's 60 days. They're supposed to go up there and do one job. And they go up there and do everything else. On everything else. And so the Consultants Corner today is we're going to be, we're still on church announcements. We're still talking about the legislative session. So any bills that stood out to you guys that were just like BFFR, WTF, or like, actually, that's not that bad. One for me that stood out is the homeless encampment bill, where we are basically, a couple things are happening. One, I believe, is that we are telling local governments what like parcels of property that they can and cannot use for houseless people to be able to sleep, etc. I want to argue that there was good intent when they are saying that these areas of quote unquote encampment are able to also provide resources like showers and bathrooms and all of that. Again, this is an unfunded mandate because where's this money coming from to actually provide these resources and showers and all these things? And then the agency that's supposed to be providing these resources is the Department of Children and Families. One of the three of us is an alum of DCF. And I can tell you, as someone who has friends on this call and also other friends who work for that agency, they ain't got no money. They ain't got no resources because they're trying to make sure y'all badass kids are getting the resources that they need, right, that their baby mamas and baby daddies are paying y'all's child support. And like, where again is this unfunded mandate coming from to be able to say that DCF has the capacity and the bandwidth to come into these areas of, again, literal encampment? I think about Japanese internment camps here to be able to say we're going to provide these services and these resources. This is, again, unfunded. This is a slap in the face to home rule. And I think that this is is cognizant and reminiscent of Japanese internment camps.
I also think that so much of what Florida and the United States does never gets to the root of the issues, right? So it's like, there are people that can choose to be houseless, absolutely. But there's also people struggling with houselessness because of wages, because of the expensiveness of home ownership, because of mental health, because of criminal history. Like, there are so many other reasons and webs and all of that that lead to folks being without a home or without a house, right? And we refuse to invest the resources into either figuring out why or solving that problem, instead of just being like, here's the shower and you can't sleep outside. Like, okay. Okay. So it's like, where are the resources holistically to make sure people have what they need? But that's not profitable, right? That's not profitable. And then to your point, yes, as a DCF alum, like, there are no resources within DCF. Caseworkers are already swamped and all of that, providing services for other folks. So like, why? Just all it's a WTF for me.
I mean, y'all know me. My overarching, just kind of credo for anything is who's paying for this. So you all have already hit on it. Who's paying for this? Like, you want to do it? How are you going to fund it? Like, who's paying for this? Who asked for this? Like,
Right.
why?
I mean,
Again, like, just creating to run on. Is that what we're doing now? Are those the rules of engagement? Are Democrats trying to catch up now? It's like Republicans have been doing this forever. Like, just create things so we can run on them. Like, whether or not it really happens, who cares? But we gave the people something to talk about.
Right.
And it's like, stop wasting people's time and money and fix the problems we actually do have. Like, don't create other things just so you have something to run on and win. Go create a solution and then run on that and win. Help people.
Yeah. And because then here's some unintended consequences that come from these areas, right? Like, folks are unmedicated and are probably using street pharmaceuticals to medicate, to self-soothe. And so now you might have an issue of drugs. There's also a concern about public safety, because and public safety that then could lead to over policing, and that also being an issue. And I could see again that probably corporations lobbied to say, there are all these houseless folks on our private property. What are y'all, the government, going to do about this? Because I don't like the fact that my customers are coming to my place of business and seeing houseless folks with all of their stuff. And so I guess the solution was, we will find some public parcel of land to be able to say, here's where you can go. Does that mean then that these folks now have an address and can go apply for a job? Is that where the piece that Jasmine mentioned about community IDs, that this says this area is where I live, so I can be able to get a check, right? Like, what actually are we doing to say that this is something that is not going to turn into like a forgotten about war zone, right? Like, in I think it's going to unintentionally cause what they were trying to avoid, like the Skid Row in Los Angeles is what they claim to want to try to prevent. And I think that is what's going to happen on public land. And I don't know what the legal ramifications are. Like, is there a time limit that people can stay? Do they get like homesteaded? Like, do they have tenants, right? Like, all of these things, I think, again, the legislature believes they have all of this infinite wisdom and they just do random stuff.
Right. Do you get like a little plot within the parcel that's yours and nobody else can take your stuff? Like, do you have access to beyond emergency care where you can not only get your prescriptions, like Maya said, but can I get a dental cleaning there? Like, can I, all these different things that could potentially help me get up on my feet? Sure. But also, like, I don't believe that there are deep, good, restorative intentions behind something like this, because I can only imagine that it was not informed by advocates that work with houseless people or any houseless people themselves. I can only imagine that, like you said, Maya, was informed by corporations or people like, get them off our property.
What is it? NIMBY? Not in my backyard, right?
You took the words right out of my mouth. Like, there is a very different, there is a very stark difference between listening to community and yielding to NIMBYism. Like, those two things are not the same. They're not the same. And if you've just got people who are like, get these folks out of my neighborhood, I don't care where they go or where they end up, they're affecting business and they're an eyesore. That's very different than we have a community of houseless people that we have to care for. Yeah. Like, those two conversations are not the same.
Yeah. Right. And there's a legislator who says all the time, like, if you want to see a government's priorities, look in the budget, right? And like, again, they have one job. And I mentioned earlier, this is an unfunded mandate. So you have this legislation with no funding or appropriations allocated to this program. And so again, this sounds all well and good, all of the things we have poked holes in this legislation to be, and then also is our local government's going to have to come up and pony up the money themselves for these programs. The state legislature did not do anything in terms of appropriations for this.
Yeah.
And what's interesting also, like the next legislative issue, and I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on this, is there is a text service that goes around in Florida, and literally it was like maybe 5 minutes apart, where an announcement came out that UF, I think, fired all of its DE&I personnel. And then maybe 5 minutes later, there was another text that said there was basically a negotiation struck where UF is going to get funding for its agricultural program. And it's like, So curious, one, on how you feel, because obviously it's been a long time since we were here, but like all of the DE&I legislation, the fact that I got a degree up here that says I majored in sociology. Ron DeSantis said that doesn't exist anymore, apparently. And then also, again, the impacts on the budget and the ramifications for that.
I yield my time. I yield my time.
I feel I have this UF situation is fascinating to me because on the one hand, I'm biased, go Noles, like FSU all day. But on the other hand, I also have worked with university faculty and staff at other universities that have had these like pride student unions and DEI work, right? And institutions on their campus that understand the impact of the legislation and have used really creative ways to make sure those specific programs are not funded by state money, right? Because the legislation is that you cannot use state money for these types of things. So they have figured out really creative ways to say, cool, this program is funded by an endowment, it's funded by a private donor, it's funded by something else, because they understand how important that is to the student population, to their campus, to their culture, to their values, to their whatever. They are willing to get creative, get innovative, and do what needs to be done. So I find it interesting that it feels like UF was like, well, Ron DeSantis said we can't have it, so everybody's fired. And the extra step to say for the faculty and staff that are in that department, you can apply for other jobs within the university is wild to me. Like, it feels very much like you didn't even want this in the first place. Like, it happened probably because of 2020 or grew because of 2020. Like, this is not something that you actually wanted and actually wanted to invest in. And at any opportunity, you're like, well, too bad, so sad, we tried. Like, and you're going to do something else. So that's just what's fascinating to me, is the way that happened and the concessions that people are willing to yield to Ron DeSantis to get something else, right? And that there are very few people that are holding him accountable to his nonsense, like his just completely not fact-based nonsense that he's spitting and acting like Ron DeSantis will be here forever, right? UF has been around for longer than DeSantis has even been thought of. And yet they are caving to that man that will not be here in 4 years. Like, those are the things that are also wild to me. That's like, where is our backbone? Where is our spine? Where's our fight? Where's our innovation? And then what happens, because I know the NAACP and other organizations are also telling Black student athletes, don't go to Florida. So what happens when we start losing championships, we start losing recognition, we start losing all this stuff because our Black and brown athletes are no longer coming into Florida, and our programs and our education and all of that continues to slide. And Ron DeSantis is on to his next thing anyway. He can't be governor for more than another term. Like, what happens then? So that's just what's fascinating to me. And I think this also comes back to Lindsay's point that it feels like Democrats and progressive people are always caving to the defense. So the Republicans find a word, they harp on it, it's DEI for now, and then we are forced to constantly defend what that is, like defend. And it's like, how do we force them to defend themselves? How do we expose their lies? How do we expose that they're idiots? Like, how do we expose, and I take back idiots, because there are some special Republicans, but how do we expose that the things that they believe in are harming more people than doing good, and that some of those things are harming Republicans themselves, right? Like, how do we expose that and come out swinging from the offense of that instead of constantly having to be the one that's like, they're liars. Okay, like, but they already said the thing that went viral that now has all of their people upset and in a fuss, right? And we can't even bring people, a living wage. Like,
well, Jasmine, it would require us as Democrats to admit that they have a plan and we don't. That is the problem. Because you talked about like why UF is in the situation.
Maya, you're not on mute. You're not
I know.
on mute.
I came off because I got.
People can hear you. The people can hear you.
I had to, let me tap my mic because it is imperative that we like say the thing, because this UF thing is not in a vacuum, and it's not like, oh my God, DE&I just came out of nowhere. 3 or 4 sessions ago, who remembers when they changed the law about the presidential searches for public universities? That before it was a public, it was in the sunshine, that there was a process that public universities, I believe there's 12 in the state university system, only one HBCU, shout out to FAMU, and that the search for public university presidents had to be in the sunshine. They changed it. A Nebraska senator was in the running, or was being considered to be the next UF president, and then was sworn in. I can't remember what they call it when you become a university president, and now is there. And do we see that is planning? It is not by happenstance. And so yes, we can call them liars, but it also we have to admit that this is not something that happened by happenstance. The fact that Richard Corcoran was Speaker of the House, then became the education commissioner, and is now a public university president, because again, that presidential search was not done and didn't require to be done in the sunshine, is consequential behavior to decisions that they made that we are on the defense for, because we didn't have a plan, because we didn't make sure we turned out people for elections, and because again, they were able to message better than we did.
Woof. Listen, I'm glad I yielded my time. I let y'all take that one.
All right, we gotta move. I feel like church.
I mean, I will say this, and then we can definitely move on. It's, again, this one is tough for me, because you talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. You're mostly talking about PWIs, but I went to an HBCU. Like, that's literally all we do. So where does that leave us? Right? Like, where does that leave us? When I was a freshman, it was required that we took AFAM history. It didn't matter what your major was. You had to know who you were, who you are, to know where you're going. That was just
okay, Sankofa.
But that was the thought. Like, when I think back at like the people that I was in that class with my freshman year that I still talk to, our majors are all over the map. Like, one's a pharmacist, another one went into business. Like, you were not going to leave your freshman year without the class. So what do you tell little brown skinned kids getting the FAMU? Sorry, can't.
Literally
can't.
You can't, because the books are banned, so you can't. So I don't know what
the books are banned, and you want to know more. You want to know more about your people? Can't help you. Can't help you. Go search Algorithm internet.
That's
at an HBCU. So it's like, so again, it's like when you say those things to HBCU students, like, what are they supposed to do with it? Like, because that's not just diversity, equity, inclusion inside our 4 walls. It's your existence, bro. Like, our BSU was not the Black Student Union. It was the Baptist Student Union. The whole campus is a Black student union. What are you talking about?
That's funny.
It's us and like 5 white guys named Mike who can come to the cookout. That's the existence, right? So it's like, again, when you start breaking down those things, it takes on a whole different meaning for kids at HBCUs, because it's like, oh no, you're not just like coming after a 3-hour training. You're coming after our 4 years, our 5 years, our 6 years, depending on what we're studying. Like, you just don't want us. You don't want our institution to exist.
Correct.
But you don't want to say that thing.
Say it one more time for the people in the back.
You don't want our institutions to exist. You don't want, like, FAMU's the only publicly funded HBCU in the state. But you can't say.
Because the public funding, there's a word there. And it answers the question that you mentioned, Lindsay. Like, well, what are HBCUs supposed to do now that all these laws come down? They take the funding from FAMU every time. Y'all pull up this 2024 budget and let me know how much money is supposed to be going to FAMU right now from the Florida legislature. That still is in the governor's desk that could be vetoed.
I mean,
right? Like, and so I remember when the engineering school for FSU and FAMU is joint. And this had to be the 2014 legislative session, excuse me. They were trying to break them up, and the budget only was giving money to the FSU school, FAMU, right? And that's how you do it. You can't just, I'm sure they probably can't just say FAMU like is no longer a public HBCU, but they change how the funding is allocated. And the fact that there's preeminent institutions.
So many little intricacies that people don't even understand. Florida State doesn't have a school of journalism, so guess where their kids go?
To FAMU?
I took plenty of classes with state kids who all had like a general comms degree, but if they wanted a specialization, they had to come across the tracks to us because we have a full school of journalism. But I don't know that we are getting any sort of like kickbacks for that.
I mean, I had friends that went over for journalism for FSU, and some that transferred all the way over, and some that took classes in journalism.
They took a lot of classes because you weren't, I mean, the program doesn't exist at Florida State, but it's like, what is the financial benefit to FAM for taking in, like, other than just like the money from the credit hours? Like, I'm sure other schools would be able to see a significant kind of reward for, oh, you're going to educate students that aren't yours. Cool. We are going to, we're going to find ways to make sure that you get some of that back.
It's called preeminence funding. And there's a whole formula. I think the first two schools that were preeminent were FSU and UF. USF became a preeminent school a couple of years ago. And I think the fourth school now that is either being considered is Florida International University. And which is interesting. There's a whole formula about like how you get preeminence funding that allows you to get more funding from the legislature. So yes, Lindsay, you're absolutely right. And it's like GPA, enrollment, all these other things. And then all these conferences all change things. And like higher ed in this state is such a formulaic and budgetary or financial institution or transactional process that folks don't understand. That, again, going back to how we started this discussion, is that UF needed funding for their ag program, I think. And DeSantis, whose homeboy is a Nebraska senator, who's also now their president, had to fire these people and or give them jobs somewhere else. And then was like, the legislature was like, ching, ching, you got your money in the budget. And hopefully Ron DeSantis doesn't veto it.
I mean,
can we have a request? Can we bring the Ether instrumental when we talk about this next time?
Yes.
Okay. For the listening audience, if you have questions that you can DM us about, and be able to
we'll open up for that.
about the legislature. We also talked about, obviously, foreign affairs for a bit during this episode. We went a long time on church announcements, but we had a year of content to try to catch up on.
Right.
But definitely hit us up about that at FL Black Girls on all the socials. And of course, if you have personal stories about any of the topics we just talked about on church announcements, definitely let us know. So, ladies, Consultants Corner. We got a lot to talk about.
We're
already an hour in. All right, Lindsay, I'm actually going to put you on the spot. So many of you in Florida know that yesterday was an election day. Some of us got ballots, some of us did not. I did not get a ballot in Hillsborough County as a registered Democrat, but some counties, for a couple of reasons. One, we did not hold a Democratic presidential preference primary in the state of Florida. And so a couple of things were on the ballot yesterday. The Republican presidential preference primary, and some municipal elections and some municipal ballot and ordinance changes as well. So, Lindsay, you were in the throes of a municipal yesterday. There's some highlights and some results that I'm definitely going to talk about once you get done. But kind of tell us what it was like, especially trying to talk to folks, motivate Democrats when there was nothing at the top of the ticket.
So in our particular instance, just so you all are aware, I was on the team that helped elect Maria Rodriguez in Pembroke Pines in beautiful Broward. And she was the only Democrat in her race. She ran against 2 Republicans and an NPA. So it was fascinating because Southwest Broward has been losing ground, ceding ground, however you want to define that, to a red wave lately. And in the last couple of cycles, we have seen more Republicans just kind of infiltrate Broward County. And they had an opportunity to flip a seat with this one. It was an open seat because the commissioner who was serving there ran for mayor. So she had to resign to run, and then it was open seat. So you have so many folks now who are just terrified. And I'm saying Democrats who are terrified that if they kind of lean into their blueness, that they're just going to get caught up in it and lose their seats. And our candidate was like, I am who I am, right? I served on the board of our Young Democrats. I've worked for Democrats. You can look at my resume. I can't deny who I am, so I'm not going to deny who I am, right? So she did 2 things. She, one, did not deny that she was a Democrat and that, she's fairly progressive one. But she also just didn't feel the need to only talk about that at the doors. There's a whole situation where they have to kind of contend with their traffic issue now. Traffic in Pembroke Pines, because the city has just grown so much over the last 2 decades. It's brought people. That's what growth does. It brings people. People bring traffic. So you try to go down Pines Boulevard even before rush hour at 4 p.m. and you're just in gridlock. It sucks, bro. So she's like,
horrific.
Let's talk about traffic issues. That's an issue here. It's an issue here. I don't want to hear about it. Let's talk about it.
Yep.
You want to talk about kind of recycling and our issue with garbage and those kind of things and how we come to a resolution there with folks.
Yep.
People were like, yeah, I want to talk about that. And she's like, well, let's talk about it. So what we found is, again, the labels so much don't matter down ballot so much as being solution oriented. And back to what Maya was saying, Dems have to go in with a plan. So Maria went in with a plan that I will, in tandem, not deny that I'm a Democrat. We put it on mailers that FTP had endorsed her, the Democratic Hispanic Caucus had endorsed her. Like, all of these Democratic organizations were like, you're our guy. And she's like, great, it's going on the mailer. I will own it all day long. You're right, I am a Dem and I'm proud of it. And also, if I knock on somebody's door, even if they are Democrats, they want to know why it takes them 20 minutes to go 2 miles down Pines Boulevard. That's what they want to talk about. They're not checking for my bona fides. They want solutions. And I think that was a conversation she was having that her 3 male opponents weren't really digging into. Like, they could say these things in broad strokes. They would, and then they would attack her. They'd attack her for being the woman. They'd attack her for being the Democrat. They'd attack her for being the youngest. And then ultimately, the people didn't care about those things. They didn't care that she was a Dem. They didn't care that she was the youngest. They didn't care she was the only woman. They were like, Maria wants to do these things to help the traffic problem. Like, we want to get out of traffic. And she's a plan for that. So that was my long-winded way of saying, I think we find our successes when, again, we get back to everything Maya always reminds us to do. Identify the problem, solve the problem, come back, tell the people how you fix the problem.
Tell the people, yeah.
That's what people want. They're like, I got these issues. What are you gonna do? All right, bet. Let me go back to the team and figure it out. Okay, I'm back. This is what we're gonna do.
Yeah. So. I mean, shout out to Maria for making history along a few different identities that she did. Yeah.
First Colombian American elected in the entire county. We are very, very proud.
Yeah.
We're very proud.
And
honestly, I gotta say shout out to FDP. I gotta say shout out to FDP. Like, they definitely kind of corralled, just like, you know, they were like, hey, we're going all in on you, kid. You're a winner. And helped. Like, shout out to Ruthless. They did the same thing. They were like, you need resources, you can have resources. And again, not only because she's a Democrat, not only because she's a woman Democrat, they were like, the people are listening to you. They're listening because you have actual solutions.
Well, what a novel concept.
Right. I was going to say
organizations working together and like having a coordinated plan. Wow, coordinated, and maybe there were some calls that we used to sit on where it was like, what is a pipeline that allows organizations to work together and know who's on first and handles different things? God, why didn't we come up with that, guys?
Well, and I think part of the problem with
that right now
is that we can't scale it, right? That's like, we can do it in a mid-cycle when it's just a few races that we want to focus on. But and I don't know that I would give the excuse that it's about the resources to scale. It's about the will to scale coordination.
Preach it, Pastor.
The will to scale collaboration. Like, it is the will to scale all of those. It's the will to scale strategy, right? Like, when we have to talk about what it looks like to do this across counties, across districts, up and down a ballot, like, I don't think people have the will to scale those things. And what it felt like to me in Maria's race is that people, regardless of what the issue was that brings them into the electoral space, were like, Maria's the person, right? Like, the labor unions, FDP, she got the ed board, like, all of these folks were like, you are our person across these issues. And there's some of our progressive organizations that are issue focused, and we're not asking them to mission creep, but it's also just like, we're with you, not you. Like, we're going to go all in on you. Fuck everybody else on the ballot. Like, because we just need you. And like Maya says all the time, like, one legislator does not make, a majority, or one legislator does not make an appropriation, or, make things good for people. One legislator by themselves does not accomplish all those different things. One legislator could really fuck us, but like, one legislator, just because they are immigrant or LGBTQ or women or whatever that identifier is for that organization, like doesn't get us to a victory that changes everyday lives for free. And so shout out to Pembroke Pines. My parents voted for Maria. And
Yes.
I really, really am hoping they do something about that traffic. It's on you, Maria.
It's awful.
Bring it home. Seriously. I do think that another part, because I almost got up and cut a step when Jasmine was talking because about scalability and coordination, because these, I think, one-off elections that keep happening in Florida that shows our ability to work together is almost, I think, what's like a false prophecy? Like,
oh yeah,
you know what I'm
yeah.
talking about? Like, I can't think of the literary term right now, but the concept of just like, we keep saying that this thing's going to happen, that I don't believe, and I know we're going to talk about this in a bit, that it's going to actually take place in 2024. We big up Donna Deegan, we big up Tom Keene, we big up Maria, rightfully so. These are amazing wins, and it demonstrated that we can work together. A lot of people, clout chasing and trying to do their bragging rights for what they did. That's not our stuff. However, I want to know, what does this look like to be able to do all these things for multiple people at the same time? What is this going to actually demonstrate in 2024? And to the point that you made, and I unfortunately, Jasmine got my stream of consciousness when I was looking at these results at like 11 o'clock last night, where I was just like texting her and I was like, okay, last thing, LOL, just kidding. Last thing. In Broward, it showed that Maria and another woman named Dawn were the only women to win elections last night. Also, FDP, I think, tweeted earlier today, like 25 out of the 60 Democrats who were on the ballot won. Can we break the fourth wall? How do we do that? So, like,
you just stare at it, like you just.
I needed to break the fourth wall. So, like, and what does this look like? And I want to have a conversation specifically about women, where on April 1st, the Florida Supreme Court is supposed to finally give us feedback and a decision about Yes on 4, which is the abortion amendment. We keep saying that 2024 is going to be the year of the woman. And when I looked at election results in Broward, in Pinellas, in Orange, in Palm Beach, there was only one county that was like demonstratively where women won, and that was in Palm Beach County. And so, like, what does this look like? I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on why women did not have the results yesterday that we are hoping for in August and November. And what does it say that Red County, Palm Beach had a huge showing of women either in races against men or women in races with other women, had huge victories last night in a presidential preference primary, where we will remind our listeners that Democrats were not on the top of the ticket for on that ballot.
I mean, I think you made that point a little earlier also, and you just said it again, is that when there's nobody at the top of the ticket, I know I didn't get a ballot, right? So for a few reasons, but I didn't get a ballot. So I think that's something, right? When people are like, well, Biden's in the bag and it's being marketed as a presidential preference primary. People are like, okay, cool. Like, what am I going out to vote for? Like, when a week ago, people are tweeting that our presidential nominees are Biden and Trump, like, what are people going out to vote for? And it takes so much more resources. And I'm sure, Lindsay, you could speak to this, to remind people to come out the Tuesday after St. Patrick's Day and remind people that they still need to come vote, right? Like, that takes a lot more resources. And you could see that by the general turnout and the numbers by which people won or lost, right? Like, people are winning with less than 2,000 votes in a city election. And that's crazy. So I think that there's that. I think that I wonder also, Maya, if the year of the woman also just happens to coincide with the year of political apathy. And like, not that those things are like, were timed to be at the same time, but it's just happening at the same time, where just generally there are a lot of people being like, this is a fucking circus shit show and I want no parts of it. Like, I just can't consume any more information. I'm just done. All of you people suck. All of you people are making all of these promises up and down the ballot and doing nothing about it. And we've talked before about going out to vote it's not as simple as going out to vote for some people. Like, it is taking a lot of actions and a lot of steps to show up at that voting booth. So Democrats just act like you wake up in the morning and something pops in front of your eyes and gives you candidates, and then you kind of just choose them and go back to bed. Like, that is not voting. It's also not American Idol where you can call in, press a number, and be done. Like, that is not voting in this country. So it's like, people are choosing to say, I am not going to expend my extra energy on this process that's not bringing money to my pockets, it's not bringing jobs to my family, it's not bringing security or safety to my family, it's not making college less expensive, eggs are still high, like all of these different things that people are like, y'all got it. Like, I tried and tried and tried, and y'all got it, and we're done and we're out.
So I don't disagree with you, Jasmine. I don't. But like, here's like the point of contention for the two of us. I also just feel like we have gone as a party, we have gone so long making candidates the thing and not making issues the thing. And you see it with Republicans. Like, I don't want to hear how so many Republicans are in love with Trump. They're not. They hate that guy. They hate that Donald Trump is their nominee. And the proof in that was that you had like 10 people run against him for the nomination. It was not just handed over to him. People wanted another option. Unfortunately, like, they just also didn't love their other options. They're like, nah. But they wanted it. I mean, the fact that you've got Kennedy out there as a real third-party threat is also proof of that. They don't love Donald Trump. They're falling in line because they like their issues. They want their judges. They want their tax cuts. They want those things. They don't have to like their candidate. And for us, we gotta like our candidates, and I wish we would knock it off. That is my one sincere knock it off. All right. Is your person delivering on the things you care about? If the answer is yes, then screw charisma, screw wanting to get a coffee, a beer, or whatever with this person. I want my electeds to be so forward thinking that they look at me and they're like, I don't know if we can really have a conversation. Like, I don't need you to be folksy with me. I need you to take care of the traffic issue. That's what I care about. Like, I don't have to want to party with you. I got friends. I don't need you to be my friend. I don't need to feel those warm and fuzzies. I need to feel that you are competent and that you can deliver on the issues. And as a society, the Democratic Party needs to knock it off. Like, no, stop it with the lies that, oh, Obama was the one. He was the one that brought everybody together. He was the one everybody wanted. There are not 60 million. How many millions of people voted for Hillary Clinton? Like 30 some odd? There are like 30 million people in the Democratic Party that will tell you that is not true. They wanted her in 2008. They landed on him. So no, it also wasn't him either. It's just not true. Stop saying it. It's just not true. And we have to, if we are going to really start winning things again, we're going to have to do a lot of things well at once. And we got to start there. We got to stop looking for this unicorn. We got to stop wishing for this person to come. We got to stop asking Michelle Obama to descend on us and save us from ourselves. She has a Netflix deal. She doesn't give a damn about what we're doing anymore. She has moved on. We got to move on. We have to, for any chance of survival, we have to make the issues the most important thing and the thing that makes us take those extra steps that Jasmine was talking about and vote and fight for them. Because your dream candidate will always be someone that somebody else settled for. So who gets to make the decision on who the dream is? Who gets to make that choice? Because I am fine with settling for your dream if your person is going to deliver on the things that I care about. I don't have to be in love. I don't. Like, we don't need to like Tinder and swipe right on our candidate. We don't need to fall in love. That's not what this is.
Yeah,
like, we're bringing elected officials to the table. We're not looking for a date for Saturday night, which is not. We're not doing that. So I wish that we would knock it off. So again, Republicans settling for Trump, that's their business, because we could spend a whole episode just on him. That's their business. But again, they have decided their judges matter the most, their tax cuts matter the most. If he's ever going to build this border wall, they want that too. They are good with that. They spent 50 years, the 50 years that we were celebrating Roe v. Wade, they spent those same 50 years dismantling it, bit by bit by bit. But they played the long game for 5 decades on us, built a whole organization just to recruit and groom judges to get rid of it. The Federalist Society exists because Roe v. Wade existed. And here we are complaining about, Joe Biden's old and I don't really like him. And we're stuck with this old dude. Republicans are stuck with an old dude and they're not complaining about it. They're off trying to make him sound young and sane. What are we doing? What are we doing that we keep complaining about Joe Biden being old, falling off of bicycles? He's 80 and still willing to try and ride it. We need to celebrate that. My God. Like Maya had her soapbox moment. This is mine. Knock it off, Democrats. Knock it off. That guy does not need to be your friend. He does not need to be with somebody you are in love with. Joe Biden is trying to eliminate your student loan debt. You've been bitching about it for 20 years. I'm drowning in student loan debt. He wants to do something about it. And the first thing you say is, oh, he's old. No, tell Grandpa Joe you are happy he's trying to help you with your student loans, and go get your knucklehead cousin to go to the polls with you so you can get it. You think you think Donald Trump gives a damn about your student loans? Y'all are wild out here. I'm annoyed. Like, stop. Everybody stop. I can't. I'm sorry. I yield my time.
This episode definitely is Ether. Like, I feel like we need some disclaimers. We need something, because I'm glad I was on mute. I almost fell out the chair. Like, it is, you are not wrong, Lindsay Pollard, in terms of, I can't remember, Andrew Gillum said it on his podcast, like voting for like your best interest, right? Like, not necessarily voting because I have an affinity for this person. Like, I'm voting for Joe Biden on November 6th, I think is election day 2024, because I don't want Donald Trump anywhere near nuclear codes ever again. Like, that is why, one of the reasons why I'm voting for Joseph Robinette Biden. And again, Joseph, had Glorilla at the White House. I don't really care. Like, what I care is that Donald Trump has no access to foreign powers, no access to be buddied up with Vladimir Putin again. Like, that's what I care.
And can't pardon himself. Listen, I remind Jasmine a lot that in 2020, Elizabeth Warren was it for her. Elizabeth Warren went in my top 3. But if she had been the nominee, I would have rocked with it. Mm-hmm. I'd have done the work for her, because Elizabeth Warren would have been a good president. And I don't deny
first
that.
Indigenous I'm sorry. I had to
edit in post. Edit in. Now see. But yeah, I mean, because guess what? I don't dislike Elizabeth Warren. I wasn't in love with her. I wasn't in love with her, and that's okay that I wasn't. I was also at peace with the fact that I wasn't. I wasn't going to bitch about the fact that she wasn't in my top 3. She would have been good at it. She would have been good at it, and I'm fine with that.
And I also I was thinking about this in my shower time. I want us to be Democrats to be very clear as to why Joe Biden is our nominee. It is because people aren't ready for a Black president, a Black woman president, excuse me, a woman president, a woman of Indian descent as president, a woman president, right? And it would be gravely it would fracture the party gravely if Gavin Newsom became the nominee before the sitting vice president did, right? It would mess up Democratic politics for Black folks to be like, I'm sorry, what? Like that lady was sitting literally right there. She has an office
Sitting there.
up the wing from you guys, and y'all went all the way to California to go get this guy to become and it's because white supremacy, patriarchy, all of these things that exist inside our own big tent party that we are quote unquote not ready, and we are blaming it on Republicans who aren't ready. That is why Joseph Robinette Biden is running. One of the reasons I believe is running for a second term is because we aren't ready as a country to give or allow Kamala to be in her full power to become president of the United States. And it would be terrible and have like unfettered consequences if we went and got Gavin Newsom or the guy Bob O'Malley, another insert white man here to come and run and her be the running mate again. That would be, yeah.
And I think that even the language of "we aren't ready" is too passive. Like, I am not ready to fly a plane because I don't have the skills, right? Like, I've never done it before. I've never even sat in a cockpit. Like, I have no business doing that. It is a deliberate choice to not say, in the same way that Democrats are forcing Joseph Biden falling off bicycles on everybody. It is a deliberate choice to not be ready, to not be ready, and to not say this is who we need, this is who's deserving, this is whatever, because that's the same thing that we see on micro levels related to jobs, right? Like, overqualified, you're not ready, like the company's not ready. It's not, that's not it. Again, that's way too passive of a voice. And that's why we keep getting fucked, is that we're not holding our own people accountable to the shit that they're doing.
That's true. And I think that's probably also why on the other side of the aisle, we see huge gains of Black folks in Republican Party. There's a man who used to sit close to the back in the Florida House of Representatives who then became a nominee at least twice for Speaker of the House in the United States Congress, a Black man who is then to be rumored to be running for governor of the state of Florida.
And I'm be our next governor.
If that Black man becomes the Republican nominee, y'all got problems. And I tell y'all this in our group text all the time. Problemas, okay? Like, and not because I'm like a huge fan of this man, but because of the skill and the talent that he has. And I mean, so we must also be reminded, and you know, it is hilarious to the point that Lindsay said that people don't like Donald Trump, but he obviously overwhelmingly won yesterday. Nikki Haley got 13, I think, or somewhere between 13 and 15% of the vote across the state in the state of Florida. And Ron DeSantis, our sitting governor, didn't peak above 4% of the vote. Like in some counties, my dog got 1,000 votes. And so, like, what does that say, Ronald Dion? What did you learn?
Not you using the Dion.
Well, and
I hope you learned
something. Reminding the people.
What's funny about that is you brought up the point about FDP in their tweets earlier. And I also feel like sometimes Democrats live in a fantasy land where some of us that know math are looking at it like, what? And they said, 20% of Floridians cast a protest vote against Donald Trump, that they don't want him. It means 80% did. Like, what? That's not, and a protest vote? Like, I just kept reading the tweet. Like, is there something I'm missing here? Like, y'all are trying to say Donald Trump is in trouble and saying 20% cast a protest vote. That means 80% with Donald Trump's craziness are like, oh no, we're picking him. Like, that's who 80%, not 60, not 51, not 80%. That is beyond a passing grade in college. That is beyond a passing grade in any class I've ever taken. Are again making the proactive choice to say, we want this man to lead us again. And that could also be, I don't know, I'm not sure I'm comfortable in saying that that means that Floridians don't want Ron DeSantis to govern anymore. Maybe they don't want him as president because they want him to stay as governor. Like, maybe that's that they're just like, we love Florida so much right now that please don't leave. Like, we want you to stay as governor.
I mean, that's what happened with Rubio in 2016. He outperformed Trump when he came back as senator. He outperformed him on the November ballot. So there's something to that logic. Well, even though you say it in jest, Jasmine, there's something to the logic is that we didn't want you as the president. I mean, we necessarily like are through with you. We just like want you over here for a minute.
Right. And so, yeah, I think that we got to stop playing weird math. That's just like, that sounds stupid to say 20% of Floridians of Republicans in Florida cast a protest vote. That's like, that's not.
No, I'm with you because I would love to see, like, of that 20%, how many of those people actually like do go and vote third party or stay home in November. Like, I don't see that protest vote really translating the same way. I really don't.
I think it'd be a protest vote if somehow they were able to vote uncommitted and Republican. That'd be some shit to talk about. That 20% of Republicans are like, we don't want none of y'all.
But I mean, even still, I think it's one of those things where you can just do it in the primary because it doesn't matter. But it's like, oh no, if Joe Biden is really getting, fixing to be reelected, we can't let it happen. How much of that pot of the 20% is really going to stick to its guns and be like, nope, like we don't care that old Joe is getting reelected, not Trump. I feel like a lot of them would fold. I really do. I don't feel it. I don't see it holding weight. Well, not for real. I think I feel like the people who are never Trumpers are just always going to be never Trumpers, and I don't know that their tent has gotten any bigger since the midterm. I don't know that it has.
That's fascinating. Yeah, but we say that this year in Florida is going to be the year of the woman, and that abortion is going to drive everybody to turn out. And so I wonder, and part of the reflection I was doing yesterday was, does this mean that, so a couple things are true. Democrats weren't on the ballot, like in a partisan fashion. This concept of abortion and women's rights and stuff was also not necessarily a driving force in these elections. Does that mean that women are not, is this going to result in this year of the woman not really manifesting itself in November? And then also, does this mean we need to stop wasting our time recruiting women for local government because we're not winning local elections? Because like what does this outcome of yesterday mean in relationship to 2024 abortion and women's issues?
I mean, not to necessarily like answer a question with a question, but wouldn't we have to do a deeper dive? Because, as you said, the kind of like special elections or the weird kind of mid-season elections, they aren't the best barometer for what happens in November, right? Like it doesn't always translate. So just because like women didn't have like a sweeping night last night doesn't mean we won't see better results in August, that we won't see better results in November. Like, I don't know that last night tells us too much of anything without, one, a proper deep dive, or two, just the fact that there were so many odd little things that led up to last night. Like, what kind of barometer can we really give it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think I agree. It feels like it's not enough data unless we do it longitudinally. Like if we can compare multiple mid cycles over the years. And then also, again, because turnout was so low, which is a lot of different things in a midterm. Like, I don't know what that means. I want to believe because abortion is on the ballot, there are going to be a lot of women that are just like, all these names that seem feminine, like vote for them. Like, I don't know who they are, what they do, what they believe in, but like women. And I also think that the Democratic Party and so many other organizations would do well with messaging that, particularly in Black communities, well, communities of color, because we know women of color, particularly Black women, are bringing out whole neighborhoods. So I think if we want it to truly be the year of the woman, where women are taking the lead, like the strategic thing to do would be, invest in Black women who are going to get their churches out, their neighborhoods out, their communities out. They're getting the corner boys out. Like, they are getting people out in buses, vans, trains, planes, whatever, to go out and vote. So if that's truly the year that we want to have, white women aren't going to do that. That's not how white women vote. That's not how white women have ever voted. So it's like, that to me is simple math. It's like, if we want to see the results of women being elected up and down the ballot and landsliding this whole shit.
I mean, I can't agree more. I don't know if y'all caught last month, MSNBC did a special for Black History Month because, the Negroes. And it was about reaching Black men politically. And it was like, the reasons they're staying home, the reasons they're defaulting to Trump, blah, blah. And it was like this whole hour-long special. And I maybe got through 10 minutes of it. And I was like, I need to watch this when I'm in a space where it won't upset my spirit. And I still never got there. I still have not watched the entire special. It's very well done. It's like MSNBC's Black men heavy hitters are in it. And they're the ones leading these conversations in barbershops and in bars and over barbecue. It was like the 3 Bs, and it was just to me, it was the stupidest thing in the world. And it was this investment in this full hour. And I remember just like raging at my dad about it. I was like, this is dumb. And then I was like, I have to like, because he wanted to watch it. And I was like, all right, well, I will watch it when I'm in a space where I can, and we'll talk about it. And I still haven't. And he's like, well, why are you so worked up? Like, why is this upsetting you so much? And I'm like, because Black women are not given the same grace.
Nope.
We're just like not allowed to have a conversation about, well, what would it look like if I didn't vote? Like, what would that look like? And what are you going to do to court my vote? What are you going to do to like make sure?
I mean, we could, but nobody would believe us until the last minute. And then they're going to dump Glorilla on us. Like,
and
shade to Glorilla, but...
And then they're going to blame us, right? Because they put this they've like built this savior complex around Black women that everyone else can screw this up, and then Black women will come clean it up.
Yeah.
So if Black women, because that was my dad's answer. He was like, well, you all should make them earn your vote. Like, you should. And I was like, yeah, but how? Like, it's great to just say that in theory, but like, how? If everyone is like, oh, we need a Stacey Abrams everywhere. For what? Like, Leader Abrams gave you more than a decade of her life. She walked away from her very lucrative book deal. She walked away from practicing law. She built this thing, and then she ran, and then you didn't elect her. You elected all the men around her in Georgia. You didn't elect her. So
twice.
What did she get? Twice?
Yep.
Twice. Thank you, Mike. And how do you pay that work back? You expect Black women to replicate what she did. You expect it. But what are we going to get back for it except your, undying gratitude that doesn't manifest into
Well, that's the point, right? And that is across, not just in politics, that is in households, that is in conference rooms, that is in churches, right? Like, that is across the spectrum in terms of what Black women are supposed to do as a service that everyone else can benefit from that we don't. Or we benefit the least.
Okay, so I will not watch that special. Thank you for
that is not what I was trying to say either.
Thank you for validating my feelings.
What is also fascinating, and because we are way, way, way over time, I say that our 2024 predictions in terms of the primary and the general. We do a part 2, an Ether part 2. But one of the last things I want to talk about that was fascinating about yesterday's election is, again, we have all agreed that the majority of folks who went out to vote yesterday were Republicans. And also, what was also fascinating was that the primary voting method that was used was vote by mail. We have always, said that Republicans vote most on election day. In the couple counties I looked, that was not true, that the majority of folks voted by mail. And also, for listeners, if you didn't know, they changed, of course, the law in Florida that you have to register to vote by mail for every election to request it. And so I found that fascinating that all these Republicans have talked crap about how unsafe and unsecure, quote unquote, absentee ballots are. And y'all was
voting by mail.
Blowing stacks with vote by mail. And so I think this obviously is a segue into part 2, but any early predictions y'all got in terms of vote by mail? And I think this might be a sneak attack from Republicans in terms of VBM for real.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Just a quick little anecdote. Y'all know I talk about my mama and her grand plans all the time. She and her cousin have decided that I need to figure out a way. I have to figure out a way to make sure everyone in our church knows that they may or may not get their VBM come August, because no one told them that they have to sign up every year. Like, they're used to signing up like every 4 years, like, yep, send me my ballots, whatever. So they have no idea that they've been booted from the rolls. And I'm like, didn't the SOE just make that announcement in church? Like, he specifically came by to make that announcement. They're like, yeah, but the people who weren't in church missed it. So what are you gonna do about it? I'm like, me? All right, cool. So yeah,
That's
no,
funny.
I say that to say, I think you're gonna have little pockets of church aunties who know this, who have no clue how to make sure the block knows it. They're just kind of at a loss. They know to tell you to go and vote, but as far as the mechanics of all this stuff, the aunties don't know. Like, they're counting on us to know and then do it. But what time do we have to do it? I'm like, I'd be happy to do this for you. I don't have an extra 15 hours in the week to build a program and stand it up for just one church.
Right.
I just don't have that. I don't have it. And they're like, you don't have to build a program, you just have to tell people. And I'm like, that's not what you're asking for. And if it is what you're asking for, that's not how any of this works.
If that's what you're asking for, fund it.
Right. Lindsay goes to a big church. They can do some stuff.
I'm not even talking just about churches. There was a conversation that folks were like, we need to get it. Remember about we need to get in front of folks and talk to them about VBM re-enrollment and yada, yada, yada. And there were some folks who look a lot like us. I'm screaming at them.
Not today,
who were
Satan.
like,
No,
here's
you're
a
not.
novel idea.
No, you will not.
Okay, all right, whatever.
You know what? Save it for the Patreon. Save it for the Patreon. Like, talking about funding things. The trade secrets don't come for free, folks.
That's right.
That's
right. Well, listen, we have talked a lot today. There's been a lot to catch up on. There's a lot I'm just glad to be back with y'all. I missed y'all's lovely faces and the little duck in the corner, for sure, on StreamYard. And just to talk with you guys, because obviously there's a lot to talk about. There's no shortage of things, of foolishness happening in Florida. So yeah, glad to be back.
Yeah.
Same.
Well, yeah, and I'm not sure when we'll be back. I guess we'll figure that out. But
there is an Ether part 2 coming, guys.
There is a part 2. Yeah, I was gonna say we have to lament. We didn't lament, so
yes, yeah. So we need a part 2.
Lament.
So run these views and these streams up so we can make sure that we come back. you know, Jasmine is going to do our offertory prayer and make sure that we in our benediction, but definitely this is how we make it happen. You know, y'all was looking for us. We're here. So we need y'all to do y'all's
Here
part.
we go.
We need y'all to do y'all's part. Amen.
Amen.
That's hilarious. Yeah, and I think that there might be an in-person surprise again. Who knows? We'll confirm some details in the next episode. Florida Black Girls might be coming back live. Right. So thank you all in a city near you. Thank you all for tuning in and for listening to our, 1 hour, 45 minutes good, bad, and petty of Florida politics. It's been a long time. Can't wait to come back. Here we go. T.I. also heard the feds in the state want to see about me. So, that's us. That's us. We're bringing them out. Like, whatever music euphemisms that we have. But support us online, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Venmo, Patreon. You can find us at FL Black Girls. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode. We're not going to ghost y'all this time. We will be back. Have a good day.
Black girl, if you 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 black girl, do your thing, do your thing, do your thing.